Great. Good evening, Council. I now see 9 faces, so we're all here. And I would like to welcome everyone and call the meeting to order and confirm that not only do we have quorum, but we have everyone present. We'll start tonight by asking Councillor Weed to read our land acknowledgement statement.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robinson-Huron Treaty, number 61 of 1850, and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take action towards real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations.
Thanks for that. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and seconded by Deputy Mayor Alcock. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting agenda dated Monday, February 28, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated with the deletion of 3.1 Steve Hernan's retirement presentation. All in favor? And that carries. And just further to that, Steve could not be with us tonight. I think he's in transit somewhere, so we will move that to our agenda on Wednesday morning. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we will skip by the invited presentation. And just before we move on to deputations, I just want to mention, Council, that for your information, in case you didn't see the communication earlier, and for the community's information, on our community flagpole, which we fly many flags during the course of the year, we have acquired a Ukrainian flag, and that is flying proudly on our community flagpole in front of Town Hall. And that is done not as a political gesture, just simply as a way to let the Ukrainian community here know that we're thinking about them and thinking about their families in the Ukraine. So we'll let that fly for as long as we can. Okay, we have a couple deputations tonight, and our first one is from the Kiwanis Club of Huntsville. But I'm looking for Shirley Bullock and Rick Brooks, and I don't see either one. Crystal, Tanya?
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. I don't see them as well. We'll try to find them, but Crystal does have a report later in the agenda that will explain their request.
Okay, great. We'll move on then to our second deputation, and that's Malcolm Cockwell and Jamie Sala from the Huntsville Forest Products. And there is a Malcolm.
Good evening.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. And I see my colleague has joined too. Good.
Great.
Well,
The floor is yours.
okay. Thank you, Mayor Terziano and councilors and staff for the opportunity to join you today and present. I am Malcolm Cockwell. I'm the president of Huntsville Forest Products. And with me is my colleague, Jamie Sala, who is our project manager. We're here today primarily to introduce ourselves and also to tell you about our business and to inform you of a major investment that we are considering making in Huntsville Forest Products. To start off, I'll give you a bit of background on Huntsville Forest Products, and I'll provide a few updates related to our operations. Jamie will speak to the investment that we are considering, and then we'll wrap up in good time so that we can ask or answer rather a few questions if you have any. So by way of background, Huntsville Forest Products is a large hardwood sawmill located on Highway 11, just north of Highway 60. Some of you may know it by the old names such as the old Tembec Mill or the flooring plant. The business has been a key part of the local economy for nearly 70 years. It was originally located on Hunters Bay, and then it moved to the present site in the 1970s under the Martin Lumber Company, eventually falling under Tembec, which owned it for many years. Today, we employ 43 staff, many of whom are proud members of the United Steelworkers, and we work with more than 100 dedicated contractors that are effectively full-time. Nearly all of those people are local to Huntsville, meaning that the business generates tens of millions of dollars of local economic activity each year, just in payroll and contractor services. Our facility consumes primarily hardwood saw logs, which are sustainably harvested from private forests as well as crown forests in the region. But we also draw timber from across Ontario as far as the Sioux and as far east as the Ottawa Valley. The vast majority of our harvesting practices are single tree selection, which means that we cut about 30% of the forest on a 20-year rotation. And in doing so, the forest is able to naturally regenerate with the residual trees, and the forest improves over time in terms of quality as well as biodiversity. It's worth noting that most of the forests that we manage, and particularly the ones around the Huntsville area, are certified as sustainable by the Forest Stewardship Council, which is an internationally recognized environmental certification. In terms of the products that we make, we primarily produce hardwood lumber as well as hardwood sawmill residues, which are sold to dozens of customers in Ontario as well as across Canada and much of it into the United States. Our hardwood lumber, for those of you that aren't familiar with that industry, is used in everything ranging from railway ties to pallets to furniture to flooring, baseball bats, cutting boards, and everything in between. Whereas our sawmill residues end up in an even wider diversity of products, ranging from food to textiles to LCD computer screens, as well as medical products like surgical gowns, drapes, and masks that have been critical during the ongoing pandemic. It's worth mentioning that Huntsville Forest Products is a wholly owned subsidiary of Haliburton Forest and Wildlife Reserve, of which I am also the president. And we are affiliated with several other Huntsville area businesses that you may know, including Limberlost Forest and Wildlife Reserve, the Huntsville Downs, Paisley Center, and the waterfront at Grandview, among others. So with that background, I'd like to provide a couple of quick updates as to what's going on at the mill here before Jamie gets into a description of the investment that we are. So as some of you know, our group acquired Huntsville Forest Products in October of 2020 from Rayonier Advanced Materials, which had acquired it from Tembec a few years prior. And acquiring this facility was a big step for our organization because we were already operating 2 hardwood sawmills in the region, one in South River and one in Haliburton. But with this coming into our portfolio, we suddenly became a major player. And in fact, we are now the largest hardwood lumber producer in the province. And owning this facility has been a great experience so far. We've got very good wood supply, and we actually just renegotiated and signed our wood supply agreement with the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines and Forestry. We also have great employees, and I'm happy to inform you that we just signed a new 5-year collective agreement with United Steelworkers, which represents our employees, and that it was accepted by our employees with a very high margin of positivity, which was great. The facility is also in a great location that we increasingly enjoy and benefit from in terms of being in a community that is supportive of forestry and with having great access to major highways and to population centers. There's been a few hiccups, and one of them is related to electricity service to the site, in the sense that out of the 3 sawmills that we own and operate, Huntsville Forest Products has actually had for a while there the worst electrical service, even more so than our one in in Haliburton, excuse me. And I'm sure this isn't too much of a surprise because I believe the town has had some challenges with industrial electricity services in the past. I am happy to report, however, that this issue seems to have been resolved over the last few weeks, and since Christmas in any case, it has not been nearly the concern that it was before. Looking ahead, before I hand it over to Jamie, I'll say that we believe that with some investment, this facility can realize its full potential to be a major player in the North American hardwood lumber industry by leveraging that solid wood supply, the solid staff, and its great location. And hence our delegation this evening to let you know about a major investment that we are considering making in the facility, which would be not only transformative for our business, but it would create an unrivaled foundation for the regional forestry sector. So I'll now pass it to Jamie to provide a couple of key facts and figures about this investment, and then I'll speak to a couple of extra points and wrap up so that we have time for a few questions. Over to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Malcolm. Good evening, Mayor Terziano, councillors and staff. As Malcolm said, we appreciate the opportunity to join your council meeting this evening. I'll keep my comments at a high level. At your convenience, you can reference the two-page summary that is included on pages 17 to 18 of your meeting package. The modernization of Huntsville Forest Products is expected to entail an investment of more than $20 million, which would be the largest to date in a hardwood sawmill in Ontario. We intend to build a new 50,000 square foot building and install state-of-the-art equipment that optimizes the transformation of saw logs into hardwood lumber. Through the project, we expect to increase overall lumber production by 100% and reduce our per unit operating costs by almost 40% to among the lowest in the industry. This will ensure that the 43 jobs that we directly provide, in addition to the 100+ contractor jobs that we indirectly provide, are kept competitive over the long term. This investment will also set the stage for follow-on investments, which may create an additional 40 direct jobs plus another 50 indirect jobs within 5 years. In terms of timeline, we expect to finalize our site plan and facility design by mid-2022, and we hope to complete the project by late 2024. We are currently engaged with engineering firms and equipment providers. In fact, Malcolm and I were on the road last week touring some recently modernized sawmills. We're also engaged with Huntsville staff, including Lauren McDermott and Kirsten Maxwell, and their representative teams about economic development, site planning, and related items. I'll pass it back to you, Malcolm.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jimmy. So just to close off, some big numbers and hopefully some impressive ones. We're certainly excited and view this as an opportunity to do something that's never been done before in the hardwood industry of Ontario, and believe that this is the right place to do it. So our primary objective was simply to introduce ourselves and to inform you of this investment that we're considering making in Huntsville Forest Products, and to also share a couple of items so that you're aware of the significance currently of the hardwood forest sector in the region and what it could be following an investment. So with that, I will commit to keeping you all updated with our progress over the coming months. And if there's any time left, I'd be happy to answer questions, as would Jamie. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Malcolm and Jamie. I can already see hands up, so there are going to be questions, and I'm going to start with Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you very much, Mayor Terziano, and both to you two for a really interesting presentation. And I'm just going to go right to the point. Very exciting, and certainly I read the package, and the numbers are, they're up there. But you kept using the word considering. How do we help moving that word from considering to making it happen? I'm pleased you're meeting with our staff, and I'm sure that they're working really hard to make it happen. So if you could comment on that, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, we'll certainly appreciate the warm welcome that we've received so far as we've gone through these initial stages. We're still at a fairly early point in the planning of something of this scale. Hence the timeline being, looking towards the end of 2024, which may stretch into 2025. So I think for us, it'll come down to a number of things. Obviously, the cost of the project is a big one, and the timeline upon which approvals and the nature of those come in. The electricity issue was a big concern initially, but as I said, I'm happy that that's been to a large extent resolved. But we can keep you updated on those points as we move forward.
Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the Deputy Mayor beat me by a split second getting her hand up before mine. And she's always tough to follow because she steals what I have to say every time, but this is very exciting. Thank you for your presentation. Looking forward to a great future. Glad to hear the hydro issues were dealt with. I know in the past, Kimberly Clark had a big issue with them, and hopefully they'll be fully resolved. Keep us posted on that, and certainly anything we can do to help along. But this is great news. Excited to have you guys, take over that spot and get it up and running again, because it was sort of sitting there with not much going on for quite some time. So thanks again, and let us know how we can help.
Thank you, Councillor. We appreciate it.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Malcolm and Jamie, for your presentation. Very exciting indeed. Malcolm, you mentioned in your presentation that you're Now, getting raw material or raw product from this area, of course, but as far as the Ottawa Valley and as far north as Sault Ste. Marie, and looking at your present operation with 43 staff and so on and so forth, is there additional raw material out there to expand to the degree you want? And where would you be getting that from, if not from this particular area?
That's a great question, which warrants a very long answer, which I'll force myself to keep brief. So there's, broadly speaking, we're under harvesting the forests in this region and really the hardwood forests across central Ontario. There is more management to be done. Some of it is costlier wood because it's more difficult to access, but more efficient facilities can work with costlier wood. And so that's one point. The other is that, to oversimplify it perhaps, is that in looking at the technologies that we would use in this facility, we intend to have a production line within the facility that is specialized to process small diameter and lower quality wood, so that we are more efficient at using the material that right now would end up in, say, the firewood pile or the pulp pile instead of the saw log pile. And so if you're able to do that, you can loosen your log spec and you create a whole bunch of extra supply that until now has been perhaps not the preferred diet of a sawmill of this nature.
May, Your Worship, just so in essence, what you're saying is what are now considered coal logs that would be going to firewood is probably usable with new technology, Malcolm?
New technology to us for sure, technology that has existed in some cases, but with a bit of optimization added to it. But yes, new technology to us.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good presentation, gentlemen. You said a lot of good things. One comment I really enjoyed was the one you said that Huntsville would be a first in Ontario, and Huntsville is used to being a lot of firsts, so we welcome you to our area. Thank you.
Councillor Stone.
Thank you. Just a quick one. With your big investment and your upgrading of machinery, does this mean you'll need more employees or less?
Mm-hmm. So at this point, it would be the same. The nature of the work would change. It would probably be more skilled positions, hopefully with the exact same crew we have now. So some training would obviously be involved. It does create the opportunity though for follow-on investments. So for example, adding at some point in the future kiln capacity or additional processing capacity, which would create additional jobs. But at, let's say, phase one is let's get a truly modern, efficient mill running. And that would be primarily maintaining the existing jobs and making them more competitive.
Very exciting. I'm really excited for all of Huntsville. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any further questions, so I'll just wrap with saying thank you as well. New jobs, new investment to Huntsville is always welcome, and we know you guys have a great track record. I personally have enjoyed the Limberlost Reserve for the odd hike, and certainly Huntsville Downs Golf Course for the more than odd golf game. So thank you for keeping Huntsville as #1 and in your future investments, and thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you very much, Mayor Terziano, and thank you, councillors, for the support and the warm welcome. We really appreciate it. We will keep you updated.
Okay, have a good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
And now, council, I do believe our first deputation is with us. I did see Rick. Are you there, Rick? There he is. Hello, councillor.
Welcome. I must say, first of all, as the other hat that I wear as a councillor in Lake of Bays, I'm very pleased to have heard this presentation. And as some of you know, Limberlost Forest is in my ward, and I know Gareth, that family is really engaged in the community. So this is great to see for Huntsville.
See, there was a reason for you to be second tonight. Hear that presentation.
Good point.
Okay, Your Worship, if we could have the ability of screen sharing,
You certainly may, whenever you're ready.
okay? Okay, I'll turn it over to President Shirley for a moment.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors and staff, for the opportunity to share with you about Kiwanis. We are here tonight to present to you the story of Kiwanis and how our birth here and how we have grown. In 5 years in Huntsville and Muskoka, and the importance of service clubs to a community like Huntsville. It is our hope that this presentation will help you to understand what it means to be a Kiwanian and appreciate our passion helping the youth and why we feel the need to share those accomplishments and recognize the people who have made this possible. I'll turn the rest of the presentation over to Rick Brooks.
Thank you, Shirley. So right off the bat, we will start with basically serving the children of the world. This is our end goal. This is what we're all about with Kiwanis, is children. So we then go to our mission statement and some of our big picture stats. Where Kiwanis is in over 80 countries in the world, over 600,000 members, annually sponsoring 150,000 service projects, $100 million US, and one heck of a lot of service hours. The Kiwanis Club of Huntsville, Muskoka was chartered in 2017. I was pleased to be an integral part of the chartering of this club, networking from April to August. At our inauguration, we had at the then Mayor Scott Aitchison, and at our charter night we had Councillor Thompson. So we're very engaged with the community. So coming together to make a difference in our community is what Kiwanis is all about. Developing lifelong friendships is again one of those attributes that you get with service clubs. What does that mean for us here in Muskoka? Well, we're part of what we call Eastern Canada and the Caribbean District, a district of over 19 countries, nearly 300 clubs, and over 6,000 members. Locally, we're in what we call Division 8, currently has clubs from Alliston to Huntsville, and later this year we are preparing to grow another club. So things are moving up. Our club impact, again, is the focus of supporting kids and kids programs. Partnering is what we do with Kiwanis, and I've always, as a Kiwanian, been involved with partnering. So when we mention partnering, what you see on the screen are some of the local businesses that we have worked with that come on board to work with us most year after year, and some have even become members, either personally or as a corporation. I've mentioned partnering a few times already. I found that it's imperative in whatever we do, more hands make work light, and at times open doors you didn't know you had the key to. So the following slide captures some of those that we have been able to work with. The Salvation Army, we have worked with them from day one. We pride ourselves as the service club they can count on. Through Christmas in July in support of the food bank, Christmas kettles, the Adopt a Family program, and of course, Project Porch Light food drive with all of the various first responders is a major project that we are pleased to be involved with. Staples and Kiwanis. This is a partnership that I've been involved with personally for over 20 years in their back to school program. The name has changed a few times over the years, but the end result is it's providing much needed supplies to our school children. Over the past 2 years, our club has been able to deliver over $40,000 of much needed supplies to schools and organizations from Gravenhurst to Berks Falls and Dwight. Celebrate Community. This is a new initiative that started last fall, where we engaged the three major service organizations, Rotary, Lions, and Kiwanis, to establish a new annual partnership project to benefit our community. In 2021, we chose food insecurity in our local schools throughout the snack and breakfast programs to both Catholic and public elementary, as well as Huntsville High School. Given the support of our major players in town, Metro, Freshco, and independent grocers, in 2 weeks, our 7 clubs and stores were able to raise over $11,000 to distribute through every local school in the Huntsville area. Kiwanis scholarships. You have seen examples of how we're engaging with the elementary students. This has been our first and most important step into the high school students. Besides these 2 local scholarships, which we're very proud of, we have now launched a new one with our foundation, a $5,000 scholarship in partnership with Staples. But locally, the Brenda Wayman Goulet Memorial, presented to a graduating student taking visual arts, and then a volunteer appreciation scholarship presented to a graduating student who has shown by example an ongoing willingness to go above and beyond, not just in their school, but in their community. Current recipients are at the University of Ottawa, Queen's, and Loyalist. Supporting other programs, again, some of these were more important before COVID, and we hope next year to be able to be right back into them again. White Winter Carnival, we sponsor that, as well as we take care of the barbecue. We don't mind barbecuing in minus 40 degrees because that's what it was 2 years ago. So anyway, the Santa Claus Parade, Iron Man, Iron Kids, YWCA, a lot of programs that are aided by our members in our support. A key element to happy members is also having fun events. And needless to say, our golf tournaments have been just that. But I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Councillor Fitzgerald and the Stevenson Lions Club, as 2 years ago, we were caught last minute because of COVID. We needed a tent, and they came to our aid in under a week. We were able to make it come to pass because of their involvement. So again, I thank them heartily. Every year this has gotten bigger and better. And so I invite everyone to look at your calendar for Monday, September the 19th. We will be back at it again, North Granite Ridge, and a good time had by all. For all the service we do, we still need to pay for it. And after a 2-year hiatus, we're back. Proceeds here with our Dinner Anywhere in the World fundraiser allows us to cover off many of those expenses that we incur throughout the year, helping our children's programs. So it's a little bit different this year. We've actually made the prize board a little bit heavier, so it's great for everybody. Tickets are now on sale. If we were in person, you'd be getting handed tickets. So you're getting virtual tickets right now. So anyway, but all of that is available. You can see that in front of you there. We can take e-transfers and or cash, and we look forward to being at Independent actually next week, Wednesday, Thursday. The following week we'll be at Metro, Wednesday, Thursday again, and we'll be on display selling tickets. So now that we've shared our story of Kiwanis, we're here respectfully asking for your support and permission to allow our club's heritage to be on display in an area of the Summit Center lobby. Service organizations are nothing without members and only as strong as their leaders. This is why it's most important to us to recognize and honor those who come before us and those who continue to lead us. Most service clubs these days are not fortunate enough to have a permanent home to showcase their history for others to see, appreciate, and respect. We're no different. We're about to enter our 5th year. As of August, we will be 5 years old. It's our hope that this short presentation has been able to convey some of the passion and commitment that we have for Huntsville and the community, and the ability to support the lives and families of children in Huntsville, Muskoka. To that end, again, I thank you. We are here allowing our club's heritage to be on display in the Summit Center lobby would be very important to us, and to showcase for all of the community that service organizations are a key part of what makes our communities tick. Without service clubs like Lions, like Rotary, like Kiwanis, we would not be the vibrant communities that we are today. So I thank you again for allowing us to share our story, and open the floor up for questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll get you to just, yeah, that's great. Now I can see where the questions are coming from, and we will start again with Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Mayor Terziano, and to Rick and Shirley for your presentation. It's not a question, it's a comment. I just want to say thank you very much for your presentation and for all of the work the organization does. I couldn't agree with you more about, service organizations and other volunteer organizations are the lifeblood of our community. And I absolutely will support your request when it comes forward later in our meeting. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Rick and Shirley, for your presentation. Some things I learned I didn't know before about the club, and it was a pleasure to work with you as a Lion to have those collective things happen for the children in school with the food program. I didn't know it was an annual thing, Rick, so I'll be sure to inform the Lions that we're on the hook now. And just thank you for your service, because it's undeniably making a difference in a lot of lives, the service clubs we have, and how active and generous the people are that are involved in our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. And if I might, has anybody said happy birthday to you yet?
Not publicly, but privately. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Yeah, Worship. Actually, Councillor Brooks, Councillor Fitzgerald was all over social media today, getting all sorts of well wishes for his birthday. So anyway, another one. Happy birthday, Councillor Jason. Question I have for you, Councillor Brooks, with regards to the breakfast program for the local schools and so on and so forth. Is that an ongoing situation with Kiwanis? I know I think there are other organizations involved as well, if I'm not mistaken, but is that an ongoing process and project for Kiwanis? And if so, how bad is the need for making sure our children do have an adequate breakfast?
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. First of all, it is near and dear to our heart to be involved with breakfast programs. Again, over the last couple of years, it's been challenging because, as you know, even for us, as we were working with the Staples program and getting supplies into the schools, we couldn't actually go into the schools. We couldn't go into the school for bringing anything to do with food or products because of COVID. It was just not feasible. But we do involve ourselves with several schools, but it's a matter of manpower that, again, with a newer club, we do have that challenge of getting enough members to be able to do all the things we want. But you're right, there are a lot of programs, a lot of organizations, I should say, that do get involved with the breakfast program and healthy snack programs in schools. School community councils do get involved as well to try and help out their own members. So it's truly a partnership of a number of organizations. We're just part of that program. And when we looked at the community Celebrate Community this year, I worked in particular with Gundy from the Lions Club in Dwight, and mostly with Peter Redwood from the Rotary Club of Huntsville, and together we made this work. This was something that we all were involved with to a different scale, but it was easy to be able to get everybody on board because yes, the issue of food insecurity, again, this has been one of those, I almost want to call it a lifelong thing for me, but I chaired the food drive in Oshawa for 15 years before my wife and I moved here. And I can tell you that the way things have changed over those 15 years, and then the 6 years, actually 8 years now, I guess, that we've been involved here with Salvation Army in particular, the numbers don't lie. The insecurity issue is becoming rampant, and we need to try and do as much as we can to help out those that can't help themselves. It's not a matter of giving a handout, it's a matter of giving a hand up.
Councillor Armour.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Brooks, for all you do. I have two questions, actually. The first one, the plaque that you want to put in the Summit Center, what will actually have on it? What will the plaque say? And my second one is, maybe this is a good time for you to put a plug in there. How do you become a Kiwanis if you wanted to join your club?
First of all, Dan, I'll back up and say thank you for everything that you do. You've just been recognized for 35 years in the paramedic service, and that does not go without acknowledgement. So thank you again.
Thank you.
This is one of the plaques. Basically, we have two of them, and I get Shirley to hold up the other one. So the two plaques are, one is in particular for our past presidents. The other one is for our Kiwanian of the Year. So each of these are distinctive. Anyone that's been involved with service organizations or volunteering in particular, you understand the amount of work that goes on to be able to do what you need to do. And those leaders in whatever the organization is really do need to be acknowledged and recognized and be out there for people to see that there is an organization that's here to help us. There is an organization and there is people that I can relate to. They can say, okay, well, I know that person, or I know of that person.
Dan wants to join.
And Dan is interested in it. So becoming a member of Kiwanis, the easiest thing for you to do is to email me at info@huntsvillekiwanis.ca, and we'll give you the information. We're actually back as in-person meetings as of tomorrow night, as a matter of fact. We're doing our first in-person meeting in over 2 years. We're at Trinity United Church in the Milligan room. Meeting starts at 7. We'll be in there for about an hour and a half, and some good fellowship, and away we go. But that's it's like everything else. It's a little bit of work, but it's a little bit of fun. So if you don't have fun, it's not much use having a meeting.
Okay, Rick, Shirley, thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you for everything that you do as a club. We do have a resolution later on in the meeting. I think that you have lots of support at this table. It'll probably just be a matter of identifying a location at the Summit Center. But we will deal with it at the end, and somebody will definitely let you know.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Bye now.
Okay, you know what? Just before we get into meetings, I'm going to deviate a little bit, seeing as our guests have wished happy birthdays and happy retirements. And so I will wish Councillor Fitzgerald a happy birthday on behalf of all of us. And Councillor Armour, congratulations on your retirement as well. I'm also going to put Councillor Fitzgerald on the spot for just a second, and maybe with our Treasurer, Julia, you guys just did a very successful oldest night of the year. Do you want to tell the community how much money you guys raised?
I would love to do that. I would like to thank Julia for doing all the hard work behind the scenes. I just kind of get people to join, and she really amasses members for the team, and did a fantastic job raising money and encouraging people to raise money. But it was a great year. We had 32 members on our team this year, and we raised $86,000 for the food bank in Huntsville, all the walkers. Our team raised $3,600 and ended up in like the top 12 in Canada for raising funds. So I'm very proud of the level of commitment and the people that were eager members of the team. So be proud of all their accomplishments to everyone on the team, and thanks, for making Huntsville one of those caring communities full of generous people. So Julia, if you have anything to add, I may have missed some things, but thanks for all your help.
I was just going to say, it was just so great to have so many members out there on the whole sea of yellow hats. So we'll make sure we get some pictures up on our social media page.
Okay, well done, guys.
Yeah, and it was one more thing, over $11 million raised for all these organizations that don't have the resources to create a fundraiser by themselves. So in Canada, so fantastic. What a great place to live.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I heard from a little bird that Councillor Fitzgerald is responsible for the vast majority of that $17,000 that his team raised as well. So I won't disclose where I heard that information from, but I think it's pretty reliable, Councillor. So congratulations.
Okay, now we'll go into our minutes, and I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Be it resolved that the regular council meeting minutes dated January 24th, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated. Questions? All in favor? That carries. And committee meeting reports, starting off with the library. Not a lot to report on the library, but it is open to visitors and programs, and has been up and running for a little while, observing COVID protocols still, but it is open to the public. BIA Board Management, Councillor Stone.
Thank you. Just 2 points to make. After over 40 years, the BIA will not be holding Midnight Madness or Summer Sidewalk Sale. They have chosen instead to create a Christmas summer market, and that first one will be held Saturday, July 30th. And the only other thing is the ice sculptures downtown are still, they're still up. They're still beautiful. They weren't wrecked by the rain because Morgan went around and tarped them all, but they're up, beautiful. If you haven't seen them, they're really cool. And that's all I have.
Any questions? Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just, I was wondering who did those sculptures? Some of them are pretty spectacular.
They are, and I believe they hired somebody to come in to do that, and it was I don't know if it was through the chamber or not. I know the BIA contributed quite a bit of money towards it.
I think also there was a company hired to do the Main Street, and I think Chef Roy Golden from Deerhurst did the ones down at River Mill Park as well. So, but they're beautiful. Councillor Stone, we'll stick with you for Committee of Adjustment.
We had 3 applications and nothing of note to report. It was smooth sailing.
Okay. Questions? Councillor Weeb, Huntsville Lake of Bays Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not too much to report. We were talking about how to go forward with the Eclipse, knowing what a success it is and knowing how we want to grow it and try and further leverage for next year and years forward. The one thing that I would add that came up, it was actually post our meeting, was, and I thought I should let everyone know that we, the board, signed a letter of support along with many other chambers across Ontario when the blockade in Windsor popped up. There was a lot of support being brought forward from various chambers of commerce to urge a quick and speedy resolution to that issue, because it clearly was making a pretty significant impacts to so many economies. So that was one thing that did come up, and I thought the council should know that we actually supported, along with many others, that swift removal. So thanks for that.
Any questions? Councillor Schumacher.
A question for either Councillor Wiebe or maybe Councillor Stone. I hear we maybe have Maple Fest again this year.
That would be Councillor Wiebe's.
It looks like it will happen. If I'm not mistaken, there's been a few changes taking place with the Maple board, but we'll know more shortly. So stay tuned.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks, Councillor Reid, for the update. I was amazed at the numbers we had at Eclipse when you announced them last time. They're still chugging along, and the numbers are fantastic.
I don't have updated numbers. No, I don't think there's a question there. But yes, the numbers continue to bear out that it's a home run, and we think it will be well into the future.
Councillor Thompson.
I think I'm already okay. Yes, thanks, Your Worship. I noticed a notification recently that the Eclipse had been sold out type of thing, right? And I guess that would be because of the management of people going into Muskoka Heritage Place, that kind of thing. Are we about to relax those restrictions anytime soon? Through you, Councillor Wade, maybe through to Director Babineau?
I know that they did lift the numbers. The numbers did shift a little while back, which I think has allowed us to not run into the issue of having to actually stop people from arriving. But I don't know if our staff have more direct info from the province or not.
Director Babineau.
Good evening, through you, Mayor Terziano. Yes, the regulations were just released today. We're waiting to hear from our local health department to give us further direction. But until that point, we will be following the provincial regulations. It does mean that we are going to open up, lower these capacity numbers and be able to go back to a little bit of normal. So we will update the website as soon as we can, and that will also be updated on the Muskoka Heritage Place website as well. And that will that information will filter through Kelly and her team over at Eclipse.
I think also the numbers for the Eclipse, the capacity there is so great. I don't know that they've ever really had to close it off, except for maybe a special event night or something where they've been having between 500 and 600 go through in an evening though, so hasn't been an issue for them. But keeping with that, and we're moving on to the Municipal Accommodation Tax Board. So I will mention that the board was just talking last week about Eclipse and about going forward and hopefully having a successful year too. So probably putting some more funds into that because it will end up to be a different display. One of the other things it looks like, as much as this was supposed to run through till May something, I believe they're talking about ending it early April, maybe as early as April 2nd, because of the conditions of MHP, basically the mud that happens there when the snow melts and what it would be like trudging through. So for folks who haven't been up to see it or want to see it again, the month of March is the month to do that, because other than that, it may be closing down until next year again. The board, the Municipal Accommodation Board, is also working on their tourism plan. They've awarded a contract for that. That's part of their new 2-year pilot that we approved. So that's underway, and basically they meet every couple of weeks now, it seems, and there's always something to deal with. And now that we're post-COVID, I'm sure they'll be dealing with more community requests for things, funding opportunities. So Any questions on that? Okay, so now we're going into reports for adoption. No, we're going into reports from municipal. Moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting minutes dated January 25th, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated. Councillor Armour?
Thank you, Worship. It was a good meeting, lengthy. I think the biggest highlight would be 6.1.2, which is the Transit Needs Assessment and Rider Growth Plan. If you remember back, I believe it was in November, December, we discussed going back to the committee and coming up with 5 key points that we would like to see going forward. And we did that thanks to all the help from Director Hernan and his team there at the time. So the first 2, if you notice, extending the current bus route to Chaffee Township Road, Campus Trail, Highview Drive, and Highway 60 with all the new building that's going out that way. And it makes perfect sense that we provide transit. The second one was extending the hours. We heard loud and clear from some of the ridership that trying to go out in the evening time was nearly impossible to attend anything. So we put in there maybe raising it to 10 o'clock on Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays, and consider Sundays. And then the other 3 really are just more of a aggressive marketing strategy and getting the word out that the transit bus is there and looking at our riderships and seeing how we can get more people on the bus and serve more people on the bus. The rest was pretty general, but I don't know if Councillor Schumacher has anything to add.
Councillor Schumacher?
No, great report. And again, I just echo Councillor Armour's appreciation for Steve's involvement and CAO Corey making sure that we had that involvement by Director Hernan and his team to create a successful, these are our top 5 sort of wants that we want when it comes to transit.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Withey, seconded by Councillor Weed. Be it resolved that the General Committee meeting minutes dated January 26, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated. We could go through multiple chairs now as we're doing it that way for highlights, but let's just go to questions. Are there any questions of the various chairs in the various sections of General Committee? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. And I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the Planning Committee meeting minutes dated February 16, 2022 be adopted as printed and circulated. Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. We didn't have any applications in the public portion of our meeting. So we moved right along to staff reports on, and we approved 3 site plan approvals. The first one was for a 3-story, 26-unit housing development at 50 Menominee Street. And the second was a preliminary approval for the full Sabrina Park housing development at Sabrina Park Drive. And just a quick refresher, that was for 16 townhouse units and 147 multi-residential units to be built in 5 separate buildings. Obviously, that's not happening all at once. It's a multi-phase project, but the first 8 townhouses hopefully will be out the door and finished by August this year. As everybody knows, this project has been extended on numerous occasions, and even with this approval, it's preliminary because we're still waiting for some updated environmental impact assessment information. And the third site plan approval was for a new commercial property to be located at 14 Howland Avenue. One thing I just wanted to also mention that our manager, Richard Clark, provided a really good overview of our planning application approvals for since 2019 and through 2021. It gives you a really good sense of what's been going on in our community. And if you thought that there was a lot of growth, guess what? There is. And it's kind of neat to look at the figures, right? So for those who are watching, that would be public information, and it's kind of an interesting read. Finally, we dealt with a previous file with respect to a zoning amendment to allow for backlot development to proceed on Longs Lake Road. Lots of discussion around that, and we did finally approve it with conditions around the size of the actual dwelling. And that's my report.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries. A resolution moved by Councillor Withey, seconded by Councillor Stone. Be it resolved that the revised schedules attached to Corp 2022-17 be approved and incorporated into the 2022 fees and charge bylaw. Julia. You're still on mute there, Julia.
Hopefully we're done saying that soon. Sorry, I apologize. So there were quite a few schedules that were changed in the user fee bylaw. Most of them were administrative in nature, and we're providing things like clarification of terms, recognizing deposits that we currently require, or removing some duplications. There were, however, some fees that were changed, and these were the processing fees for having the hard copy building permit. So that's $25 plus scanning fee. The permit revisions were also changed to $50 per revision, and the fire services were also changed to reflect the current Ministry of Transportation fees. So those are the major changes that are in the schedules, and if approved, these will come into effect on March 28th.
Okay, questions, Councillor Fitzgerald?
Thank you, Worship. I don't have any issues, and I think that some of the changes are great. I do have a question about definitions of resident, going from not-for-profit to resident, and suggesting that they must provide a not-for-profit number from Revenue Canada. Most of the service clubs in our area don't have their own not-for-profit CRA number. So can we include that they have an international, they're under an international body or something? Because this would exclude any of the service clubs from being given a break on rentals of halls and that kind of thing. If we're sticking to the definitions.
Julia?
We can look at that. I think that's, so that was included before. So it's only if it is a not-for-profit that it have a Canada Corporations Act number. So you're suggesting that we.
It seems to me that would exclude Kiwanis, Rotary, or Lions, because we don't have a CRA number, whereas our international overseeing body does, but our individual club does not.
Okay, we can take that back and look at that.
Thank you.
Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just going through these, scrolling through these, and we're looking at rates in every department that have a column for 2022 to 2023. First question, is the 2022 column already the existing rate, or is that up from 2021?
These are the numbers that were presented before. So these are already in effect now. We brought this report forward. So these are the 2020 new numbers that are in effect right now, with the exceptions of the ones that are redlined, and those are the ones that we're changing at this point. So these have changed from the 2021 numbers.
Okay, so they were, if I may, Your Worship, they were incorporated in our budget. I was hoping that you were going to present me with a new budget with a whole bunch of new sparkling numbers in them, but You threw me off when you said this comes into effect at the end of March. I thought, well, wait, what? March of when? But anyway, thank you for explaining that. About using the word subsidized, I mean, virtually everything we do is subsidized. I don't know if there's a different word we should use. I'm not too hung up about it. I just thought I'd throw that out there for, you know, something for you to think about or not think about, as it may be. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Alcock.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Julia. I have a similar question as Councillor Fitzgerald, and that I wasn't quite sure what was the rationale for changing the definition of the not-for-profit and taking out not-profit community and putting in resident and subsidized instead of the educational, because I and it could just be me, but I find that confusing, and I'm trying to think, you know, if there's a resident that is renting space, it's a not-for-profit activity because it's an arts thing, it's a play, but they don't have a number, then they're paying, I just find, I'm not quite sure where it fits in here.
So I believe part of the reason that it was changed is because it was a bit duplicated, because we had not-for-profit and or not-for-profit or community groups, and we had a separate community group listed below. So it was a little bit confusing the way it was written before. So we just combined the two so that it, and just made it as a resident, because it was one fee that was being charged there. The subsidized one would include schools or volunteer organizations targeting youth. So I think that would maybe be incorporated into the one that you're talking about, where if it's a play or something where it is youth that are in there, then it would be the subsidized rate. So if you go to the kind of the second or the third,
right, the definitions are, yeah, I know. So it is only youth though. So it's okay. All right. So that's a bigger, I guess it's a bigger discussion. All right.
I find this, the fees themselves aren't of concern, but I find this entire report a little bit messy. When you start to talk about it was changing definitions, it made me start to really look at it to see just what you were doing. And I mean, the education schools was a category that was set up long ago in Parks and Recreation. As a matter of fact, I believe there's an agreement that says for the pool itself, I'm not sure if it applies to ice rinks and other areas, but for the pool itself, the schools have to get 75% of the lowest rate or 75% of the minor rate at the time. I'm not sure if that's in effect anymore in these fees, but I wonder why we don't have consistency in all of our buildings. For we sometimes have nonprofit, we sometimes have not-for-profit, we sometimes have residents. As a matter of fact, the Jack Bionda and Don Locke ice rinks have an out-of-town school rate and an in-town school rate, but if you're on the floor and there's no ice, there's only a school rate, not an out-of-town school rate. The consistency in all of our fees and charges, when you start looking at the names and definitions, are really quite messy. And I think somebody should go through the whole thing and get some consistency for all of our facilities so that we know exactly who we're talking about.
Yeah, we can certainly go back and do that.
Okay. Does that mean that we wouldn't be passing this resolution now, or? Julia?
Through your worship, I know we do have to bring this bylaw back probably at the next meeting for another change. So I think if this was to get passed now, because it won't change the rates, that we can certainly look at that and just bring forward any other administrative changes for that.
Okay, so if we pass this now, when you do the administrative work on it, will somebody do the research on the school rates and what facilities they apply for and what percentage is supposed to be applied to them? Because I do believe there's an agreement with the Board of Education.
Okay.
Tanya?
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. If I could just please have clarification from the director that there'll be no bylaw this evening if this motion passes.
I would suggest that this bylaw can go forward and that we bring any revisions back for another revision at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? And so Julia, just for clarity, will this come back at our next meeting?
Yeah, we can bring it back at the next meeting and we'll look at the percentage for the school rates, the names for the rates for the different facilities to be consistent.
And the service clubs that Councillor Fitzgerald was questioning, all that. Okay, all in favor of the resolution? And that carries. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Be it resolved that staff be directed to erect and install the required no parking signage for no parking areas as outlined in Report Development 2022-26. Andrew or Kevin, who's speaking to this one? Andrew?
Thank you, Your Worship. I will start, and I have no problem with Kevin jumping in if need be. So the report before you is coming at the request of both Riverside Public School and area residents. The report outlines requests for parking and traffic control measures on Shellwood Shores and Renwick Drive. Some of the concerns are raised by residents and the school, deal with various traffic or motor vehicle moving violations. And of course, the hours are in the morning for drop off at the school and pickup time in the afternoon. So Burnell Road, I want to make a point, is designated and signed as a 40-kilometer-per-hour speed limit, and has also been designated by the district as a school safety zone, I believe it is. And the administration of the schools brought forward a few suggestions for the town to consider, and they are attached as Schedule A to the report. One of the items specifically is to deal with stop signs, making the intersection of Renwick Drive and the north end of Thomas Crescent a three-way stop. Manager of Operations Kevin brought to my attention that is actually against the Ministry of Transportation Traffic Manual Book 5 that deals with regulatory signs and how stop signs should not be used to control traffic flow. Speed limits, so the speed limits on the roads in question, being Shellwood Shores, Thomas Crescent, and Renwick Drive, is 50 kilometers an hour. And it is noted that they're requesting the school that speed limits be reduced to 40. So Kevin and his staff installed the traffic control, tells you what your speed is, the trailer, and there are some numbers there that were obtained from that device. Another one is to do with no parking. No parking signs are being requested on both Renwick Drive and Shellwood Shores. Staff have outlined where they should go on either side, and it is staff's recommendation to install no parking signs. So if Manager of Operations Kevin has anything else to add, I think we're here for questions.
Kevin, anything to add?
Just a couple of things. I was contacted by the school to look at Renwick with them and see if there's anything we can do. So I did spend 2 or 3 times out there at pickup times, around that 3:30 time, just to kind of see for myself what was going on and everything. And we did get a lot of people parking on both sides of the road there. So that was what I put forward to them, was to make the one side there no parking. When I was there looking at Renwick, I did notice Shellwood Shores, and the same thing was happening there. Even though it's only one way, we had people parking on both sides of the road, and it is actually posted in some spots on Shellwood for no parking. So Andrew's been helpful and sending his people out there to kind of keep an eye on that and keep everything moving. But I think with Renwick, putting the no parking on the one side gets everybody coming in one direction and leaving from one direction, and kind of stops a lot of the confusion up there and a lot of the people crossing the road, keep the kids on the same side as the school. So happy to look at questions.
Okay. Council, I'm going to go to Councillor Armour first because I know everybody's been receiving lots of emails today, but Councillor Armour's been dealing with this more one-on-one, so I'm going to go to him first.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate that very much. Good report, gentlemen, but as the mayor has said, I've been dealing with a lot of constituents in the area and the residents, and they poked a lot of holes in it. And I see a lot of things that really don't fit in. The stop signs you're considering only on one side. That seems to be one of the major issues right now. Everybody's stopping on one side, so traffic cannot flow down through. What we're really trying to get here is the school to address their own issue of picking up and dropping off the children there. Instead of making it a town issue, it should be their issue. The property that the children currently use to cross into the school, is that town property or is that school property? That's my first question. Who's liable if something should happen? Because it's an unmaintained trail. It's just kids walking through snow. I have a list of questions, so
Councillor, I'll come back to you. I'm going to go to the CAO who had a conversation with the school board today, in case there's some stuff that she can share that will maybe answer a few of the questions before we get too much further into it.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I did have a conversation today with Mr. Tim Ellis, who is the Superintendent of Business Services for Trillium Lakeland District School Board. In my discussion with Mr. Ellis, he did confirm that Riverside School is typically a bus-driven school. It's certainly not a school where the students would typically walk to. That's always been the nature of the school. He has indicated that over the past few years, they have certainly seen an influx of in-person drop-off and pickup. He said that's something that's become quite evident. He is aware that we are having this discussion this evening. He's also aware of the recommendation of staff. Mr. Ellis made it very clear that the school is more than willing to work with the town of Huntsville, and they are looking at coming up with a revised plan now that the issue has been brought to their attention, specifically with safety concerns of area residents, that they would be more than happy to revisit the plan that they currently have in place. And he did say that if the town would work with him with respect to wording and communication to the parents in the area that attend the school, that he would be happy to work with us as well. So definitely lots of accommodation from the school, wanting to work with us to make sure the communications go out and wanting to make sure that a plan is in place that works for everyone in the area as well. So if there's any questions about my discussion, Your Worship, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, Councillor, if it's all right, I'm going to go back to in order, and I will come back to you, Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. And so, yeah, maybe mine is to Denise and not Kevin and Andrew. So through you, yeah, is this an issue that happened 2 years ago, or is it more of a congested issue now with COVID? Because my understanding, because yes, I do have a niece and nephew that attend Riverside Public, and the drop-off is not at the front door anymore, and cars through COVID were not allowed to drop in through the front exit. Each child had the cohort, and there was different doors that kids were to go through. So it created, through these last 2 years, a lot more of this congestion. Whereas if they go back to the original protocols of parents being able to drive into the parking lot and drop their kids off, I don't know if we'll see as much of the issue that we're seeing. Also with COVID, yes, it is a bus-driven school, but because parents did not want their kids to have to wear masks on the school bus in the morning, masks on the school bus on the way home, and masks all day during the school year, a number of parents were doing probably the drop off and pick up that maybe did not do that in the past, right? So again, I'm not saying there wasn't probably issues before this, but are a lot of these issues the congestion due to COVID and what has happened in the schools regulations around COVID for pickup and drop off, that if the school changes their policies around COVID and goes back to their original system, would see less of this.
CAO Corey?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I certainly don't want to try and speak on behalf of the school board, but in my discussions with Mr. Ellis, he did not confirm specifically if different directions were given as a result of COVID. Through our discussion, he did indicate that obviously, as I noted, he did see an influx of in-person pickup and drop off. I think it's probably safe to assume that had something to do with COVID because he has indicated they have seen an influx in this over the past couple of years. So without putting words in his mouth, I think that's probably a fair statement. He did indicate that he certainly is open to doing communications, as I noted, to parents, not just specifically with restrictions to parking, but addressing the new revised plan that they may come up with. And I'm assuming that would probably have to do with ridership on the buses as well. But again, that's something that the school board would have to communicate to the parents in the area. So again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think it's fair to say that COVID certainly has had an effect on the increase in traffic we've seen in that area.
Everybody else's hand has disappeared. I don't know if they timed out or if there's no more questions. So Councillor Armour, I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, as you mentioned, I have been in communication with the residents. I've been not only through email, by telephone, and by visiting the site a few times. They don't feel that placing stop signs on one side of the street, whether it be on the south side or the north side, is going to really fix the problem. The issue is the amount of vehicles that are coming in there and blocking the street for people to get by. And then after that, it's the issue of speed and volume. As you know, there's only two ways into that area. You either take Shellwood, which is one way only, or you come out Renwick onto Bernal Road. So all that traffic flows out to Renwick. So whether it be 10 cars, 20 cars, or 50 cars at that time of day, it's quite congested in that area. So they can't go up Renwick because cars are parked on one side. And then everybody runs around, comes around Thomas, which is then congests all of Thomas at the same time. I don't know. I don't see a quick fix to it. And I think the residents here don't really see a quick fix to it. But if we're going to place stop signs in there, I'd like to see stop signs designated for times when the school's dropping off and picking up, and on both sides of the road. And then second to that, I'd like to see those signs be there temporarily while the school works on this solution to actually get them back into coming into the school zone again. Because I think with stop signs, it's just going to increase the work for our bylaw. There's going to be enforcement now. Someone's going to have to be out there every morning and every afternoon. Are we going to start ticketing people for parking on the wrong side? Another is the liability I mentioned before of this trail through the bush that goes to the school. Nobody seems to know whose property that is, whether it's just an easement through there, does it belong to the school, does the town, and is there a liability to it? I don't really think that's going to fix it. Another issue I have is you put stop signs out there. I think it's going to be like Pearson Airport, where someone's going to pull up and stop on the wrong side, and a bylaw is going to step up to them and say, okay, you need to move your car, and they're going to drive around the corner and come back again and park on the wrong side again. I don't think this fixes it. So I'd like to make it actually an amendment to this, that we place stop signs out there. I don't know if we can do this or not. Maybe Andrew can help me at the beginning of Shellwood Shores and on Renwick that say no parking on streets between these hours. So it addresses the entire area in the subdivision and addresses the school issue with drop off and pickup. And then we're not cluttering the streets with a bunch of stop signs.
So Councillor Armour, just to be clear, you do keep using the word stop sign, but you're referring to no parking signs, correct? Or no
That's correct. I said stop
signs.
signs. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
I mean parking signs. Thanks for catching that. That's why you're the mayor.
Just so that Andrew knows what we're talking about. Andrew, I don't know whether you want to comment on an amendment such as that to have no parking or no stopping on the street between the hours of 8 and 9 and 3 and 4, whether that's something we could or couldn't do.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Armour, yes, that is something that can be done to specifically say no parking Monday to Friday, say 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Now, when Councillor Armour mentions about having bylaw there, in order to ensure compliance with the no parking at those times, if it is one side or both sides, you would need both Corey and I, one on each road, to make sure that whatever's decided tonight, if it's one side, both sides, no parking, no stopping, whatever the case may be, is actually being complied with, and then enforcement to be done as well.
Kevin?
That'd be no problem for us to put up the no parking signs with time was on them. We just have to order them special, that's all.
So it is something that's doable in conjunction with the school issuing a notice to the parents of that are dropping off kids that this is going into effect, and that the school needs to make alternative arrangements. And I don't know whether the CAO has to sit down with them to sort through this or not, but Madam CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I absolutely could work with the school board, and in discussions with Mr. Ellis, we had this conversation about communications, and certainly that's something that the school board would be willing to put in the communication, that the town of Huntsville is in the process of erecting signage, restricting parking. We will be actively enforcing those parking signs. And if something happens, and once the revised plan is completed by the school, if it appears to address the issues that exist, council could then decide to remove the no parking signs if the matter has been addressed. That's something that we could consider down the road once that revised plan is completed. Placing no parking signs in this area is probably the quickest way of addressing the issues that have been identified. Certainly there are other ways that could be considered as well, but they might take a little bit more time. And we would absolutely communicate with the school board to ensure that message was relayed to the parents of that school. So I think it would be actually very effective. It will definitely take some resources from our bylaw department to enforce that once those signs are erected. But in discussions with Mr. Ellis, he said that a similar situation occurred at another school within the school board. And he said it didn't take the parents very long to realize that the signs were up for a reason and active fines were issued, and it didn't take them long to rectify the issue. So it has been effective in other areas, this method.
I'd just like to see the communication happen with the school board. I don't really want to see the town be the bad guy to start fining people for dropping their kids off in an area that, quite frankly, it sounds like the school directed them to do. So I think that communication to rescind that direction needs to go out. Councillor Withey.
Thank you, Worship. I did have my hand up and took it down because I knew Councillor Armour was all over this, but the subsequent couple of things that popped up. First of all, it would have been great if we had seen a map with street names on these things. It took me a while to figure out which direction we were looking in here and where Bernal Road was. So now my fear is that, you know, you stop the no parking in these places, you're just moving the problem around. And what we really need to do, and I think the mayor was alluding to this, is we need to get the school board, and perhaps with hopefully COVID wrapping up, kids will get back on buses and we won't need all these issues, because Councillor Schumacher made an excellent point. You know, and everything, like everything else, hinges on enforcement, whether it's the OPP or whether it's us. We've got to make sure, if we're doing these kinds of things to make them effective, is that they work. But I do agree with the mayor, this starts with the school board. And I'm just fearful that people, these no parking signs are either going to be driving around in circles because they can't stop until their kid shows up on the side of the road, or they're just going to move to other areas that aren't signed currently. And then we're going to hear from those residents as well. So this is a big can of worms. I certainly sympathize with the area residents that are upset with this, and I see that, you know, parents want to get their kids to and from safely, so that's also an issue too. Anyway, that's my speech. Thank you.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. Great discussion, great points, Councillor Withey. I was thinking along the same lines that, are we going to create another issue if we don't allow people to park on those streets that they're currently parking on. Do we have the ability to create a wider shoulder of parking on Brunel? I know it's less than ideal, but if it's on the school side, that may exacerbate some of the issue. And that may be an option. I know the CAO is discussing options, and we think it's the school's issue. I guess my issue, and as most of you have commented as well, is the safety of the children and the safety of the people who live in the homes on the streets where they feel unsafe conditions are occurring. So we need to address it for sure. And I think we maybe need to look at different answers. Brunel widening the shoulder, parking may be one of them.
Deputy Mayor Alcock?
Thank you, Your Worship. I am going to echo a number of the comments I've heard. There's part of me that I've heard that the school board is willing to, look at a plan, and maybe that is, as Councillor Withey said, that's the place to start. I'm a little concerned that if we go forward and put stop or no parking signs up, whether it's one side or two sides, don't know if that really answers it. To Councillor Withey's point, it goes elsewhere. And, we still have the issue that was raised by everybody that they would like the speed limit reduced. And I recognize that good work in the report, and I know you were there, but, a lot of people think that it should be reduced. And so we're not addressing that. And I feel like, I just feel like there are other answers, and maybe more work needs to be done with the players that have offered to do the work, right? So, and I think Councillor Schumacher's point's really well taken about, is this a COVID issue, right? And does it change? So I'm not sure where I'm going, but I just don't know if it's adequate to say, let's endorse the proposal that's in front of us tonight. I think there are a lot of other things that need to be dealt with.
Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. And yeah, I definitely agree with Deputy Mayor Alcock. I'd like a few more, maybe some input from the school. Are they looking at staggered pickups? What is their plan that may address this? I understand we do need to look at the situation now, but I do agree with Councillor Withey, is that, are we moving the problem around? And to Councillor Fitzgerald's point, I've been there, people are still parking on Brunel Road anyway as it is. So do we widen that side? You do have junior kindergarten kids who are 4 years old. A parent is not going to want to just drop them off and wave by and let their 4-year-old walk, quite a distance. They're going to park and walk their child to the door, right? For that safety purpose that you have a 4-year-old going to school. So those are the concerns. There are very many concerns around the children, and I definitely feel for the residents there, because yeah, people have their back end of their car halfway into their driveway, and all of those things. That is very frustrating in around that area. I would agree to if it's a school zone, why aren't all those streets 40 kilometers all around there? Make it 40 kilometers all completely around that school zone, and everything should be at least 40 kilometers as far as I'm concerned for a speed limit.
Councillor Armour? Councillor Armour, you're on mute.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment on the 40-kilometer zone. I do have a report coming in on General Committee with a motion to make that area completely a community safety zone and speed limit drop to 40 in the whole area, because it is very active with children and very active community. And with only one way in and one way out, it makes a lot of traffic go through.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, great discussion. I happen to think that Councillor Schumacher's point is probably very well taken with regards to changes in drop-off habits with the lessening up of COVID and so on and so forth. As far as the speed limits in front of the school concerned, I can't see really any need to change that. I mean, we go from a 50 to a 40 when school's in session, but there is a problem with regards to the speed limit along there, but it's not in front of the school. It's actually further towards Baysville. And I was made very aware of this on Family Day. I would happen to be at a residence place just past the school, and the speed limit on Burnell Road drops from 80 to 50. And that is, and Kevin can correct me on this, but I think that probably flies in the face of legislation or recommendations that come from the province or whatever with regards to that. So what I would like to see is maybe at our next general committee meeting, a request to the district to have a 70 kilometer-an-hour zone established past 920 or 920, I think it is, Burnell Road. So further around the corner before the bend to the school type of thing. That would drop the speed limit from 80 to 70 to 50 to 40. And I think that might be more than adequate, because people come around that corner at 80 and all of a sudden they're breaking down to 50 and probably not accomplishing 50 by the time they get into the school zone. So that's something I'd like to see. It's not related to this discussion here earlier, but I thought I'd wait till the end of this discussion, Your Worship, because it is related, but it's not related to the parking problem on these streets that have been mentioned.
Thanks, Councillor. And I do think that is on our general committee for discussion on Wednesday this week. So you can rest assured we'll dive into that one then. Councillor Stone.
So I'll just be quick. I know it's been contentious for a while over there, but it's really the school's problem. It's the school that needs to solve this. And I don't know whether we're making a knee-jerk reaction because we've had some complaints recently, but it needs to be the school that solves this. And whether it's staggered starts or the end of COVID, I don't know what it is, but I would like them to solve it. And can we initiate that before we start putting signs up?
Okay, I think I agree with most comments that have been made tonight, and I think that what's most important here is the safety issue of kids on roads, and I'm pretty sure that the easiest way to address that would be to have people drop their kids off on school property, not out on the road somewhere. So I would really suggest that we direct our CAO to sit down with the school board immediately. If you want to have somebody from council or somebody else from town sit down with you, Denise, and do that, I think that discussion needs to happen as soon as you can make it happen, and address this. We can put this motion, we can table this motion so that if we do come back and want to put up signs, or we can direct staff to order the signs still, they won't go to waste. You know, I'll defer to you, Councillor Armour, what you would like to do tonight, but I do agree that it is the school board's problem. Councillor?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I agree with you, just the school board's issue. My only concern now, we're really not addressing the current issue for the next 4 or 5 months of school with the traffic that's coming in the area, the parking along the streets. I don't think I don't really know who said that who owns that property that goes through there, and is there a liability to the town if someone should fall and break an ankle going through there? I think maybe on a temporary basis, I think we need to erect some of those no parking signs for those times and enforce it. And we need to force the school to do something quickly. And because if we don't put anything, our hands are tied. We just can't address the issue, and they're just going to continue parking there. And come September, if nothing's done, we'll be back at the same table again, talking about the same thing. So.
Okay, so I agree with you. We need to do something now, but we also need to engage the school board right now. We can pass this resolution. Kevin can order the no parking signs. I think we're clear we want them to be sort of 8 to 9 and 3 to 4. And as soon as we have those in stock, we can at least get some of those up, and we've done something from our end. But I don't want to let the school board off the hook here. I want them to sit down immediately and start solving this problem. So as Councilor Armour says, we're not talking about it in a couple of months. CAO Corey.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to confirm, when this matter was brought to our attention, we had reached out to the school board a few times to set up some meetings. Unfortunately, they had some issues and they couldn't reschedule with us until today. So I am very actively having conversations with the superintendent. As I noted, Mr. Ellis, and he has committed to continuing on having these discussions with myself in order to provide us with information about a revised plan for the school. I do think that by installing the no parking signs, that gives us an extra tool that bridges this matter until such time as the school board, who is responsible for this, can address it. At any time, council can decide to remove those no parking signs. So as soon as we're confident that the matter has been addressed, and that would be through conversations with myself and Mr. Ellis, I would be absolutely happy to have a member of council join in those conversations if you felt it was required. But I can assure you that we are having those discussions and I can report back to council on that.
Okay, I just, it took 2 weeks to set up a telephone call with them. I don't want it to take 2 months to set up the meeting with them. So that's all I'm saying. When I'm saying let's deal with this immediately, I mean immediately. So Tanya, I see your screen's on, so I'm sure I'm doing something wrong.
Not at all, Mayor Terziano. It is my understanding that there's a few changes to the motion, so I'm just confirming that is correct. It's not what is exactly what was created, so I have an amendment. Should Mr. Stiller and Mr. Bocock understand it that way as well?
Why don't you share with us what you've come up with as an amendment? I'm not 100% sure we need an amendment to this. It's just, we'll see. Let's see. Okay, same resolution, and further that the signage be posted on both sides of Shelwood Shores Avenue, Thomas Avenue, and Renwick Drive as follows: no parking Monday to Friday between 8 and 9 and 3 and 4. Yeah, actually, I guess that is a good amendment, I think, depending on what the rest of council thinks. Going to get a mover and seconder for that?
One question first, if I could.
Yes.
You've got Thompson in there. I don't know if Councillor Armour meant for Thompson to be on that too, or if it was just Renwick and Shelwood.
If it may, Your Worship, I think we need to include that, Kevin, because I think what'll happen, the traffic will just move to that side of the street and the kids will be walking down the street around the block to get to there. So I think we need to incorporate the whole area. Thanks.
I just wanted to make sure we were talking the whole area.
Yeah. And my second one, if I may, Your Worship, would these signs be posted along the road, or can we just put them at the big entrance into both areas, or do we have to put multiple signs?
They will be multiple signs, so through you, Mayor Terziano. There will be multiple, but we won't overwhelm it to, we say, in front of every house. We'll stretch it out as long as we can. If there's a bend in the road or something, then we'll have to start it again. But as long as it has the arrows pointing in the direction, if the road does a 90 or a turn there on Renwick and Thompson, we'll add another one there just so people know it's there and they're not saying, well, I didn't see a sign, so you can't give me a ticket kind of thing, but we won't overwhelm it. And with the weather and the ground right now, it's not something that'll be tomorrow by the time I order the signs, get locates. It'll be a little bit.
Okay, I think that amendment then was moved by Councillor Armour, seconded by Councillor Stone. And do we need to see it again, or is everybody, Councillor Schumacher, question? No.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so yeah, that gives a bit of time too for the school then to give the notice to parents that the signs will be going up within a week or so, and they'll have to start to make their arrangements.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor of the amendment? That carries. And then the main motion as amended, same mover and seconder. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. Okay, that was a good discussion. Council, we've been at it for about an hour 45. How about we just take a 5-minute break? And let's come back here at 7:15. Okay, we're waiting for a few more to come back.
Your worship, my video can't be started because the host has stopped it. So
Well,
there we go.
You'll restart it.
There we go.
We're just waiting for Councillor Fitzgerald and we'll be back at it. And he's on this motion, so we have to wait. There he is. Okay, I have a resolution moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the town received notice of the successful application to the third intake of the municipal modernization program in the amount of up to $73,089 for the town of Huntsville electronic records management system implementation. And whereas the total project amount is anticipated to be approximately $110,000, therefore, be it resolved that council approve proceeding with the Huntsville Electronic Records Management System implementation project to be funded through the Records Management Reserve to a maximum amount of $36,911 for the municipal portion. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the transfer payment agreement for the municipal modernization program and any related documentation. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. So just to add to this report, we once this agreement is executed, we'll have approximately 1 year to complete this project before we report back to the ministry informing them of the project's completion. And there's a high-level synopsis of the project in the report. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Okay, questions? I don't see any. We're always lucky when we get about 65% funding for projects that we were going to do anyway, so that's great. And it's nice to see you, Andrew. I don't think I've seen you in 2 years.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too, Mayor.
Okay, council, all in favor? And that carries.
Thank you.
A resolution moved by Councillor Withey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Alcock, whereas the Township of Georgian Bay, on behalf of Muskoka municipal participants, received notice of the successful application to the third intake of the municipal modernization program in the amount of $72,758 for the joint Muskoka GIS project for parcel alignment. And whereas the total project amount is anticipated to be $110,000, now therefore be it resolved that council approve proceeding with the Huntsville portion of the Municipal Modernization Program Intake 3 funding for joint Muskoka GIS project for parcel alignment to be funded through the Corporate Information Reserve to a maximum of $7,700. And further, the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the transfer payment. Margaret, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Through you, Mayor Terziano, I will summarize the report very briefly and be able to answer any questions. So mid-2021, there was a change that MPAC created in their parcel fabric mapping. That was done to help improve that data set, better align it to the PIN mapping, so property identification number used at land registry. So overall, it's an improvement, but that in turn has led to an alignment issue with our other data sets that sit on top of this parcel fabric. You could imagine that's kind of our base data for a lot of information. So this project in particular is speaking with the municipality's zoning information, or if it progresses, our community planning permit precinct, which is very similar off of our zoning information. So when this was brought to our attention through the Township of Georgian Bay and the Municipal Treasurers Group, we were happy to show support for that. It's a very tedious alignment type of job. So we look forward to getting that done through this grant opportunity and part of this partnership. I've outlined the reserve account. It fits very well with how we've utilized that account in the past. And we hope to have it done. Pardon me, the project will be done by February of 2023, and District of Muskoka is overseeing that with an intern position to complete the project, sorry. And the attachments there kind of show that alignment issue. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so Margaret, that means when I look at the map now, all of my house will be on my property instead of just half of it?
The goal would be to improve that, but our disclaimer will still say it's not survey accurate, but yes, the goal is to improve that, those situations.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. That was basically my question as well. But will these new boundaries or lines or whatever we're doing here, Margaret, are they going? Will they like conform to other, like for Geo Warehouse, for instance, and MPAC and all the rest of them? And is that what we're sort of targeting here to do with the end goal of this?
I believe so, yes. So MPAC creates the parcel fabric layer for all of Ontario, and it's used for assessment purposes. So we call it parcel layer, assessment layer. I believe Geo Warehouse, Land Registry, they have another data set. We call it PIN mapping. So it's very similar, but there are, when you really get into it, there are significant differences for that. Each PIN itself is mapped, whereas in assessment purposes, not all properties, not all PINs are necessarily assessed land and therefore aren't mapped. Roadways, for an example, a road allowance is not accessible land. So it's not mapped by MPAC, but it is mapped on PIN mapping. So the goal is to move to that, and that's what MPAC has done to better align it with the PIN mapping, which again is what, to my knowledge, Geo Warehouse and Land Registry uses, and hence hopefully improving that accuracy. So overall, yeah, good improvement. This is just to bring our other data in line with that.
Okay, all in favor of the motion? That carries. Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you.
I have a resolution moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that Council approve a renewal of the current lease for a term of 12 months for Cottage Country Internet for the antenna located at Port Sydney Community Hall, and further that the lease be established at $50 per month for the term of the agreement, and further that the Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to approve the final terms and conditions of the agreement, and further that upon completion of the lease, Cottage Country Internet will remove all equipment and repair the building as necessary to the satisfaction of the corporation of the town of Huntsville. Ian?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a continuation of the lease that was agreed to about 6 months ago. The terms of the lease are exactly the same as the previous one, with the exception that we've increased it to 12 months. The Cottage Country Internet is negotiating and working with other organizations to eliminate this leasing location, but due to weather, they haven't been able to put up their own antennas, and they are still in negotiations with other organizations as alternatives. So we are just looking to extend this lease for the period. There's no cost to the town for this.
Questions? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I don't know who to direct this question to, but I was tobogganing at the hall last week, and I noticed there's a small antenna on the roof. And I noticed that there was cinder blocks on the roof. I guess I had a little bit of concern about how that is fastened to the roof and how safe it is. So I don't know who we get to have a look at that, but it just struck me as an odd setup. So
through you, Your Worship. Oh, I apologize.
Go ahead.
To your worship, that actually is a standard deployment if you're not going to do penetration through a roof. So what it is, it's a specialized frame that comes up on an angle. It has lips on the side. So you then put weights under those lips and that holds the brace down. But what that does is it eliminates any penetration through the roof whatsoever. So when this contract is finished, they should be able to lift the bricks off. They lift off that panel and the roof is just the way it is. So that's why we've chosen that mounting method as the preferred method, because it doesn't leave anything down the road. But they are locked into that frame. So they should not come out. And I've used them previously in other locations.
Great, thank you for that.
Not a problem.
Councillor Withey.
Thank you. Actually, I was going to concur. I had to do that on the roof of my office here when I had to get my beam across from Lakeland for my internet, and that's how they do it. They don't want to pierce the roof membranes, so it's quite common. Anyway, I guess I didn't need to say anything. There you go.
Okay, all in favor of the resolution? And that carries. Thanks, Ian. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Stone and seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that the town oversee the collection of municipal accommodation tax for all accommodation providers in Huntsville. And further that the municipal accommodation tax financial accountability agreement dated November 5th, 2021 be amended to reflect the removal of the reference to the legal agreement in section 2A and redirect the 1% collected to the town as the new service provider. And further, the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign any necessary documents. Julia.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report is just to recognize the fact that our agreement with the Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association, which is ORMA, has a set term which ends on March 31st, 2022. So at the present, they currently collect our MAT tax for us for all accommodation providers at 1%, with the exception of short-term rentals, which is at 5%. This agreement has been in place since 2019, and the town has worked with ORMA on developing the procedures and systems to assist in the collection of the MAT over this time. With the addition of the short-term rental providers, there's been a significant increase in the administration that's been required for the collection for these MAT taxes. And that's primarily due to the volume of the different providers, just education for this new program, and increased follow-up for non-compliance. So the increased need for these resources were recognized by council in the 2022 budget, and part-time finance staff was added for the administration of the MAT collection. So we feel that moving the entire collection process in-house would provide a better experience for the providers, because they'll only be working with one organization for collecting and reporting, and it should make the whole collection process a lot more streamlined. The town staff has met with ORMA and let them know, and we're going to work on the transition together over the next month. I just wanted to take just a minute just to say thank you to Sanju Abraham and the Ontario Restaurant, Hotel and Motel Association for the assistance with this program, because it is a brand new program. So lots of learning lessons along the way, and they've been great assistance over that time. So if council does support the recommendations in the report, the agreement with the Huntsville Municipal Accommodation Tax Association will need to be updated to reflect the change in the collection process, just because it does specifically mention ORMA in there.
Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that carries. Okay. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Weeb, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that council refers report Ops 2022-9 Memorial Bench Dedication Program to the March 2nd, 2022 General Committee meeting. And that was just at my request to have that discussion happen at general rather than at council. So this is a formality because it was referred back to this meeting. Questions? All in favor? That carries. Okay. It looks like we're at bylaws. Tanny, we didn't do anything through this meeting to change the bylaws, did we? Well, she's sharing the screen so that I don't actually have to read that. So it's moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Withey. Be it resolved that bylaw numbers 2022-17 to 2022-23 inclusive be reported and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 28th day of February. And everyone can see the bylaws listed, and that is what was in your package.
Mayor Terziano, just number 23 has as amended as per the report today.
Okay. So that's a change from the package, the amended one, right?
That is correct. As per the report earlier tonight with the parking, we just made that amendment.
Okay. Questions? All in favor? And that carries. Okay. We have a motion moved by Councillor Withey, seconded by Councillor Armour, and I'm going to ask the clerks if they can share this one because it's long, it's in your package, and rather than me read it, this is a resolution that was put forth by the AMO group, hoping that most municipalities will pass this to ask the province to reconsider the amount of funding that local municipalities need to come up with for new hospital builds. So it's a long motion. We passed it at district last week, and it basically is asking the province to reduce the amount of healthcare dollars we have to raise for new hospital builds. Any questions? All in favor? And that carries. I have a resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock and seconded by Councillor Wiebe. Whereas, given the concerns raised regarding the relocation of the River Mill Park Community Garden, and whereas the growing season requires preparation to begin in the coming weeks, now therefore be resolved that staff be directed to inform the Kalani Community Garden Group that council confirms the community garden will remain in River Mill Park for the 2022 growing season. Deputy Mayor Alcock, do you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Your Worship. I could. I think we had the discussion at our previous general committee. It's just to give them certainty that it's very unlikely, obviously, that we'd be moving the park during this season. And I know that we're working on our waterfront plan, but even if we get to our recommendations, it's again unlikely that anything would happen during this season. And they're all ready to go. So basically, we want to pass this motion to give them that ability to start gardening. And that's it.
All in favor? And that carries. A resolution moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Be it resolved that council acknowledges the deletion of Shelby, Barnes, Stevenson from the Downtown Huntsville BI Board of Management and approves the amendment to the list of directors for the 2018-2022 term of council, resolution number 2619 and 22520. Councillor Stone, anything to add on this, or?
No, nothing to add, really.
No replacements then?
Not at this time.
Okay. All in favor? And that carries. We're at Clark's Lane in the Ontario Land Tribunal. I'm guessing Director Maxwell is going to speak to this.
Good evening, Your Worship. This is just for information only, the approved development by the Ontario Land Tribunal and then the associated bylaws for council's information.
Thank you for that. And council, that brings us to the Kiwanis Club request. And I have a resolution prepared if anybody wants to move and second it. And I see lots of people. I'm just going to pick Hands, Stone, and Thompson. Whereas, Tanya's going to share that. Whereas the request has been made by the Kiwanis Club of Huntsville, Muskoka to install 2 plaques at the Canada Summit Centre to showcase their history. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare a report with a policy and procedure for the potential display or form of recognition to be located at a town facility to acknowledge the impact various service clubs have on the community. Questions? No question. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Not a question, but more of a comment, I guess. First of all, I'm definitely in favor of this. And I think Councillor Brooks made a good point when he pointed out that very few of the service clubs do have a permanent home type of thing. So to display their these kind of plaques, I guess, is problematic for them. So I guess we should be prepared then maybe for requests from other service clubs for a similar kind of installations at the Summit Center. Just about having said that, I'm in favor of this for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's all the motion is doing, so that we can identify space and identify space that has room for growth should we have other requests. But Councillor Withey.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. My concern is we've been doing very well with the art installations in the opening out in the front doors of the Summit Center. So I think we have to. I wouldn't want to conflict with that. I think that's been fabulous, and so we just have to find a suitable spot because we get more, and we've started somewhere in the main entrance there. Before you know it, there'll be no room for any art.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Agreed. It's a big building. I think staff will come back with a couple of different locations that we can approve. All in favor? And that carries. All right. Okay, also, I have a resolution here for a request by the CAO to join, or at least to put her name forward to the Ontario Municipal Administrators Association. I need a mover and seconder for that. And I will do Councillor Weed and Councillor Fitzgerald. Whereas the Ontario Municipal Administrators Association is currently seeking expressions of interest for 2022-23 board nominations, and whereas the Town of Huntsville Chief Administrative Officer has expressed a desire to submit an application of interest to have her name stand for election, and whereas Council recognizes the benefits to the organization and the community by having staff representation on municipal governing bodies such as the Ontario Municipal Administrators Association. Now therefore be it resolved that Council fully supports the submission of an expression of interest by Denise Corey, Chief Administrative Officer, to have her name put forward for consideration by the OMAA Board to fill a director's position within their organization. Madam CAO, do you have anything to share? How many nominations are going to be out there? Are you running against a dozen people or?
Well, Your Worship, I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure how many people will be submitting an application. The deadline to submit is the middle of March. And I do want to thank Council for considering my request this evening. I did send you a little bit of information with respect to the association. And if I were successful in my application, what my commitment would be to this organization. This is the organization that supports the Chief Administrative Officers across the province of Ontario. They currently have roughly 350 members, which include aspiring CAOs as well. So as our workforce ages and we see some CAOs departing over the next 5 to 10 years, it's really important to prepare that next level of workforce to fill those positions. So I've been with the municipality for 30 years as of next month. And I just think that I would be able to bring some value to the organization to help prepare that next level of chief administrative officers for municipalities across Ontario. So thank you again for your consideration of this motion this evening.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and I'm definitely supportive of this resolution on behalf of our CAO. I think we've seen the benefit at the district level, and the town of Bracebridge has seen the benefit of having their mayor be involved with AMO and so on and so forth. So anytime we can have one of our chief members of staff to be part of an organization like this, I think we should be all over it and give her all the support that's required. So I think, and congratulations to CAO Corey on taking the initiative to put your name forward.
Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I'm more than happy to support this as well, but the natural question is, how much time is this going to take?
And through your worship, I can respond. So typically we would see 4 in-person meetings, although the past 2 years they've been having all of their meetings by Zoom. So I would have 4 times a year. They typically try to tie it into any type of conference or any type of event that's scheduled with the organization that I would normally be at anyway through my professional development. So any of the costs associated with meals and accommodation would be covered by the board. There would not be a cost to the taxpayer for me to attend these sessions. Anything outside of that, I would most likely do on my own time because unfortunately during the day, it really doesn't permit a lot of extra time. So I certainly would be committed to putting that time in on my own time as well.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have every confidence that CAO Corey can manage this, and I think it's an opportunity for her to learn and grow, and I wish you good luck.
Okay, all in favor? And that carries. Go ahead and submit your name and get ready for more work. All right, we are at the resolution for the flag. A resolution moved by Deputy Mayor Alcock, seconded by not Tim Alcock, I think that would be Tim Wethy, seconded by Councillor Wethy. Whereas on Thursday, February 24th, 2022, the country of Russia invaded the country of Ukraine, and whereas Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called Russia's act of war a massive threat to security and peace around the world, and whereas the Ontario Premier Doug Ford has assured the Consul General of Ukraine that the people of Ontario stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Ukraine, and whereas Council shares in Prime Minister Trudeau and Premier Ford's comments and admonishes this unprovoked aggression on Ukraine, now therefore be it resolved that in response to this horrendous act, Council of the Corporation of the Town of Huntsville direct staff to remove the Russian flag from the G8 flag park, and further that the flag shall not be reinstated until Council rescinds this motion. I will go to the mover first.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I don't need to be long because I'm sure that everybody else has been somewhat overwhelmed, as I have ever since the war started, and beyond overwhelmed, somewhat speechless. So I think there's an overwhelming desire in our community. I certainly know with me, but I've heard from lots of people. Is there a way that we can express our support for the people in Ukraine and just to express something? And I find that, Huntsville's in a bit of an unusual situation as a municipality that we have Flag Park because we had the G8. And so it's there it is, something, our park that we're all very proud of because we actually hosted the G8 and that was a pretty unusual thing. But we also hold Flag Park with a great deal of pride. And I think what I've heard from people in the community, and I'll speak for myself, when you look there and you see that there's a Russian flag there amongst all of these other flags, and it just seems at the moment somewhat an anathema to what that represents and that park represents. And right now, there's this, again, I think an overwhelming level within our community to say, right now, it's not appropriate that we fly that flag. And so I thought it was really important that this is it. You know, it doesn't do anything for the state of the situation. It's clearly symbolic, but it's an expression of how our community feels. And I do want to say one thing, and that is, I know we've received letters from other members of our community who have stated very clearly, you know, we're I think we're too woke for words, but I would say to that this is not an attempt to erase history. Absolutely, the G8 included Russia, and absolutely the G8 we had the head of the country here within our community. And so we're not trying to rewrite that. But it is symbolic to say, as I said, when we look at Flag Park, and if we continue to fly the Russian flag, it's almost, it pulls at the heartstrings, I think, of a lot of other members of our community. And this is something that we are able to do, and to make a statement and say, for as long as Russia is doing what it's doing, it's very difficult to respect that flag. And so therefore, from my perspective, it's a no-brainer, and I think we need to take it down.
Councillor Stone.
Thanks. I received a call from a very well-read gentleman who wants the Russian flag to remain. He stated that it's a piece of history and likened it to removing the statue of Sir John A. Macdonald. I told him I'd rather put up a plaque bringing more information in that particular instance rather than erasing history. Then I saw the images of the victims of the unprovoked attacks happening today in Ukraine. Like most Canadians, I'm asking, what can I do? I trust that the G7 nations and NATO will act swiftly to protect Ukraine and the world from a prolonged conflict. Surely the world needs calm and happiness after the past 2 years. But I believe there is power in symbolic acts. And yes, the G8 Flag Park is a memorial to our local history, and I hope that we may soon put the Russian flag back up to mark that event. But for me, today, while an innocent free nation is being attacked, I can make this small gesture to send an important message. Thanks.
Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really appreciate it when Councillor Alcock and Councillor Stone go ahead of me, because my words are going to feel moot. But I don't think we're erasing history. We're very proud of our past and hosting the G8, and that legacy will remain with us and for our future of our children and grandchildren. And this is an opportunity for us to show some solidarity and support and compassion for people that deserve it and need it at this time. So I'm definitely going to support this.
Councillor Wiebe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Being of Ukrainian heritage, I really appreciate what's been said so far. So I will also support the removal of this flag.
Okay, and I'm just going to say one quick thing, in that I don't think that we're erasing history. I don't think Flag Park is the history. I think the G8 being here and the 8 countries being here were the history. And I don't think that if we take that flag down, we should replace it with another flag, because the history piece is the 8 countries that were here. So I'm fine to take the flag down to show respect and compassion for the Ukrainians that live here in our community and who have families still back in Ukraine that are experiencing this. And I believe the flagpole should just stay empty until such time that we rescind this motion, whenever that time comes. And as I said earlier in the meeting, I'm glad that we have a Ukraine flag to fly on our community pole to show some solidarity. So I too will support this resolution. Councillor Withey.
As soon as I go to think of saying something, somebody else says it right in front of me. I was just, but anyways, yeah, I mean, this is shocking after, 80 years without this kind of conflict in the world, to be facing this and explaining it to your children for example, having, uncles that fought in World War II and how this all unfolded. I mean, this is a gesture from that we happen to be able to make because as Deputy Mayor Alcock said, there's not many communities that are flying Russian flags for any reason in this country. I'm very happy that the Ukrainian flag is on Town Hall. As people know, we have the largest Ukrainian population outside of Ukraine. So it's very important that we show that support to our compadres and hope that this gets resolved very soon, because it's the other direction is unbelievable to conceive of. Thank you.
Councillor Armour?
I just want to say I echo what everybody's been saying here tonight. And I think one last thing we need to say here is we should all say a prayer for those people in Ukraine right now and what they're going through, and hope for this ends and they get back to the table and start talking. It can end this quickly.
Absolutely. All in favor of the resolution? And that carries unanimously. Council correspondence is in your package. District of Muskoka updates. We'll start with Deputy Mayor Alcock, Community and Planning Services.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. There were two committee meetings. The first one was a joint Community and Planning Services meeting with Health, and it was to hear a consultant's report on the Human Services Integration Review. And without going into all of the details around that, it's a massive undertaking, and Council has already supported. We did receive some extra funding from the province, and we're moving into phase 2 of this review, which will help the district actually implement some of the recommendations. In a nutshell, it is to redesign how we deliver our human services across the district, and that's things like our staff that deal with housing and homelessness issues and how that intersects with other people who are dealing with Ontario Works programs or health-related programs. And up until now, we've been doing all of that in silos, and it's not terribly efficient. And this is a huge provincial initiative they're trying to do across the province. And, often Muskoka seems to be out front in a lot of things. And right now we sort of are, but it's massive. And I don't know how quickly any of this will happen. I'm not even sure that this integration will even start before the end of this term. So that was one meeting. The second meeting I actually didn't chair because I had to leave near the very beginning, but I will say that for those that are really interested in what the district is involved in with respect to our environment and environmental initiatives, we had at least 3 update reports on our Muskoka Integrated Watershed Management Plan. A lot of really good work is happening there, especially we're doing the next phase of floodplain mapping. That a lot of it's being funded by both province and the feds. And the other that is really cool is a natural capital inventory, which is an inventory of our natural resources in the Muskoka watershed. That is really exciting. It provides data that we can use as we are all trying to move forward with more progressive, environmentally sensitive planning in the district. So that's neat. And attached to that, there were also 3 separate reports on affordable housing presented by the Ontario Professional Planners Institute and by AMO, as well as the province's Ontario Housing Affordable Task Force. So those are all attached to the agenda package for the CAPS committee this month. And so anybody who's interested in housing, a lot of good stuff.
Thanks for that. Councillor Withey, Health Services?
I was wondering what order you'd go in tonight, so I'm ready for you. Health Services Committee, well, Deputy Mayor Alcock went on about the joint meeting already, so I don't have to do my half of that, although she chaired it and she did an excellent job, I might say. Our meeting started off, we had a couple of presentations for recognition of individuals going above and beyond in assisting Gravenhurst with their water disruption issue. And that was for Kevin Smith from Gravenhurst Canadian Tire and Tim Green from Greens College. So that was quite a nice little conversation we had there. We had a presentation about moving the West Paramedic Station to be more efficient. Not a lot more detail is really need to share about that. Regular reports about the Pines and from Simcoe, Muskoka District Health Unit. We did have a report about the Gravenhurst water disruption and the overall emergency management response. We had a discussion about the annual exercise exemption for emergency management, which we have to do. And that was about it, other than I'm glad to see Councillor Armour didn't sleep in for this meeting today now that he's retired. And wanted to say thank you for your service and happy retirement, former Commander Armour. You're gonna lose that that moniker now, buddy. But way to go! Kudos all around. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Withey.
Okay, and the engineering public works was canceled. My notes say here, so Councillor Thompson, I'm going to go right by you unless there's something you want to
Actually,
share.
if you wouldn't mind, Your Worship, I wouldn't mind making a couple of comments. You're right. We did have a meeting, but there are a couple of areas that I'd like to just basically make public aware of, and it's a couple of areas that I think are of concern. As I'm sure you've all noticed in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a massive increase in the number of potholes around town, and there are some real ugly ones, and they just happen to appear overnight because of the the freeze thaw kind of situation. So they will pop up overnight, and some of them are really ugly. So I've talked to the yard. We do have cold mix available, and so if you see one that doesn't look like it's been attended to, let me know or let somebody know at the yard, like Kevin or whoever. The other thing is the intersection at Center and Main has been a bit of a problem. I've had several people call me with regards to that, and we've changed the direction of out turn and straight through there, and left turn and so on and so forth. And I see a lot of my colleagues nodding their heads. I guess you've all heard about it. The problem is the directions that are painted on the road, okay, are just not there for any length of time because they're either covered with snow with the recent weather we've had, and or they just disappeared because now we're using water-based paints and they just don't hold up like the oil ones do. So just make sure that the district has put up signage way up high on one of the standards, the traffic light standards, but unless you're looking up at them, you're not going to be aware of them up there, type of thing. So just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that, and because there have been some near misses there, and hopefully by the time phase 4 is done and we complete the downtown project, that all that will be resolved. But meanwhile, those two areas of concern, I just wanted to make sure the public are aware of that. Thanks, Your Worship. Appreciate it.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Councillor Thompson. So I was through there the other day, and we had experienced that exact situation where two people decided to go straight. But I noticed that the sign up on the lights across were on in the foreground. They weren't on the light stand on the through at the other side of the intersection and above. Do you know what I mean? So by the time you arrive to the intersection, the sign was already above you. You couldn't see it. Yeah. So I'm just wondering if there's a plan to maybe readjust where those signs fall, like so that even if you're at a standstill at the light, you can still look up ahead and still see the signage. So I don't know if that's in the works.
That's a very good point, Councillor. And I'll ask the district about that. I don't know if there's a post or a poll before we get to the intersection that could be utilized there, but we'll check into that for sure. That's a good point. And if we could do that, absolutely, it makes good sense.
Okay. And district council, primarily two big things on that, and that was passing the district budget. And a report that showed the district will be assuming the operations of Fairburn in June of this year. And there was a budget adjustment to make that happen. So as well as the build hopefully getting underway sometime soon, the district will be overseeing the operations. It will become the owner. Just one last thing, back to the flag resolution, forgot to mention our staff will be taking that down approximately 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. So in case anybody wants to know that. And with that, I have a resolution moved by Councillor Fitzgerald and seconded by, whoops, hang on, Tanya.
Thank you, Mayor Terziano. I just wanted to note that you passed 10.5, which was the Huntsville Forest Products. I'm assuming that all is well and you don't need to discuss that, but I just wanted to note it in case you did.
Yeah, no, there was no request.
Thank you.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Fitzgerald, seconded by Councillor Armour. Be it resolved that confirmation bylaw 2022-24 be received, numbered, and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 28th day of February 2022. All in favor? That carries. And I have a resolution moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 8:02 p.m. All in favor? And that carries. And we'll see everyone at 9 a.m. tomorrow for a special